Hello everyone, my name is Dan Macy and I would like to welcome you to our final webinar of the strange year that has been 2020. For this discussion, I would like to welcome back James Brown from our sister company Compeer to help us understand more about employee benefits. Using data taken from Compeer's biannual remuneration survey, in which James speaks to over 40 firms across the industry, responsible for employing over 10,000 people. He will give us some very interesting analysis as well as some predictions. The report itself is a very valuable tool with information collected twice a year in both May and November to ensure accuracy. It enables clients to compare remuneration, working hours, leave, etc., as well as benefits, all within their own defined peer group. It is a unique way for determining trends and can help in retaining key staff. Indeed, clients of the survey have a higher rate of staff retention than the industry average. If you would like to know any more about the survey, I'm only too sure that James would be happy to speak to you. We will then hand over to Prash Arora, a senior recruiter at Parkwell, who will give us some thoughts on employee benefits and some of his points of view. Finally, we will have a panel discussion with three leading members of the industry. I will let them introduce themselves before the panel gets started, but I'm very pleased to say that Sophie Forrest of Forrest HR, Angela Wilson of Killick, and Sean Anthony of Rathbone Brothers will be joining us. So firstly, I would like to hand over to James Brown of Compeer.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone. So as Dan mentioned, today I'm going to be focusing on the benefits currently being offered by wealth management firms. I'm also going to take a little look at the future as to what lies ahead and the key changes that are expected in terms of benefits. So there are in fact two sources of the data that I'm going to share today. So Dan mentioned the remuneration survey, but also throughout the past 12 or 18 months, we've run a series of ad hoc surveys with HR professionals in the wealth industry. And typically these surveys, we receive responses from between 10 and 20 firms. So let's get cracking with the findings and starting with what is currently being offered. So if we could move on to my first slide, please. But here we have three of the most commonly offered benefits in the wealth management industry. So we've got life assurance or death in service cover is very much a given, with 93% of firms offering this as a free benefit to all of their staff members. In fact, just one firm suggested that this is not offered as a benefit, with the others suggesting it's offered to some staff, but not necessarily all of them. Then season ticket loans are also very popular. So you've got 80% of firms offering these to all of their staff. And with the likelihood of staff continuing to work from home and therefore reduced traveling required, this may be a benefit that we start to see fewer firms feeling the need to offer going forward, or at least the interest-free loans that they're providing will be for a lower amount. And third on the list of the most commonly offered benefits is private medical care. And we've got 2/3 offering it to all staff. And this actually rises to 93% if you include those that offer it to at least some staff. And given the crisis the world is currently facing, those benefits relating to health are becoming increasingly important. And I'd not be surprised if staff members have started to review their policies in greater detail to see if, for example, private medical services could be used in the case of a positive COVID test for them and their family. So let's take a closer look at two of these benefits that are health related and how they vary across firms. So we can move on to the next slide, please. So starting with death in service cover. So across the firms that we spoke to, by far the most common approach was to offer payment of 4 times basic salary, with the benefit being active from the first day of employment. And for most, this was the same across all staff, although some actually say they offer 4 times for the majority, but their more senior staff can see this increase to 5 or 6 times basic salary. But interestingly, actually some firms have used this service as a significant differentiator from their competitors and are offering as much as 10 times basic salary for the potential payout. Then flexibility is very much a key term when considering benefits today, and this is one such benefit that some have actually introduced a bit of a flexible element. For example, firms have suggested that although their standard offering is 4 times, an employee can actually increase this to 6 times, with the employee having to pay the difference, or in fact they can reduce it to just 2 times and receive a refund. Now, moving on to the private medical insurance, the main differentiator between firms is whether or not the benefit has been extended to the family. And this is the case for a third of the firms that we spoke to, with some of the others actually looking to introduce this in the near future. But unlike death in service, there are some that require a probationary period, so typically 3 or 6 months, to be completed before the private medical insurance becomes active. And there's also the possibility that the service is not entirely free for the employee. So although the firm will pay for the premium, in some cases employees are expected to pay any excess. Also, some have said that if the service is to be extended to family, then the employee must split the cost with the firm for the extra cost of the premium. On to the next slide, please. Now, 2020 is probably not the best year to be discussing holidays, with so many having to change, postpone, or even cancel their plans. But still, I believe it is a key benefit for staff to consider. So here we've got the range in paid days leave offered by firms. And as we move across the chart, each line represents a different firm. And on the left, you've got the green blocks of firms that have the most straightforward approach, so offer the same number of days leave to all their staff, with 25 days being most commonly chosen. And then you have the majority group of firms that offer a range in days paid leave. So the minimum amount being offered are the red blocks and the maximum the blue blocks. And the main reason for these variances is because of the seniority of the individual. So the more senior, the greater the number of days leave that they're given, or in fact, the length of time that an individual has worked for a company, and with extra days being offered to reward loyalty. And in some of the cases, the differences can be actually significant from one particular firm, where, for example, the range is as high as 12.5 days between the lowest and the highest offer. But for most, though, the difference tends to be around the 5-day mark, with a common offering being between 25 and 30 days paid leave. On to the next slide, please. So I now move on to one of the major benefits, and this is pensions, and it's an increasingly important benefit and has a clear value attached to it. And here I focused on defined contribution pensions, as this is what the majority of individuals now receive, with the DB schemes gradually dying out. And since 2010, the average DC pension contribution from firms has gradually increased from 8.19% to 9.47% in 2020. And this may not seem like a huge difference, but in real terms, it very much is, because of the rise in basic salaries over this period. So to put this into context, in 2010, all fixed staff costs, and so it includes basic salaries and pensions, in the UK wealth industry amounted to a combined 1.93 billion. And so by applying the 8.19% value for pensions as a percentage of basic salary, it gives a potential total pension contribution of 146 million. And by comparison, last year, the total amount paid in fixed staff costs had risen to 2.83 billion. So if I use the same methodology, but this time used 9.47%, the total pension contribution rises to 245 million. Therefore, the total contributions made into pensions by firms has risen by an estimated 68% since 2010, which is a far more noteworthy figure. And the other two figures I want to mention on this slide is that over half of the individuals in the survey received more than 10% into their pension, and with 2% actually receiving a substantial contribution in excess of 20%. Also, for many firms, there is the option to boost pensions even further with a bonus sacrifice into pension scheme. So this is true for 57% of the firms that we spoke to. And as it stands, the uptake actually is relatively low. So it's an average of about 8%, with a range of 5 to 10% across the firms. But this is clearly a benefit that more firms are increasing their focus on, and it can have a material impact for the individual when considering whether to join a firm. And on to the next slide, please. Now, one of the benefits that I would say I get asked about the most from our HR contacts is the maternity leave packages that firms are offering. And here are the results from 22 firms that we surveyed, and the pay offered across the 39 weeks of maternity leave. And as you can see, this is one benefit that is often very much different when you compare one firm to the next. And I've ordered these firms by the number of weeks in which full pay is offered. And so at the top end, so at the left-hand side of this chart, you have a firm that very generously offers 26 weeks at full pay before switching to the statutory amount. And with my wife currently on maternity leave, I'd be delighted if she was on a scheme similar to this, but sadly she is not. But some then prefer to stagger the payments with periods of full pay, followed by stages of either 90%, 75%, 65%, or 50% pay before S&P kicks in. And these are also very considerate offerings. Then on the right, we have the 6 firms that offer the statutory amount of the 6 weeks at 90%, followed by the 33 weeks at S&P. And given the generosity of many of these offerings, there are often conditions that need to be passed first. For example, a minimum period to work for the company, and that can vary from 26 weeks to 3 years. But then some firms have actually opted to increase their offering by stating that maternity leave can be extended to 52 weeks, but the last 13 weeks are unpaid. So one would hope that with firms offering good maternity leave packages, it will show loyalty to the employee and they'll be keen to return to work. And to further increase the possibility of this, one firm even specified that they actually pay a return to work bonus of a month's salary that the employee gets 3 months after they return. But now, though, the majority of workforce in wealth management continue to be males, and so it's certainly worthwhile also considering the paternity leave. So if we could move on to the next slide. Well, for paternity leave, the results are far more consistent and straightforward. So 1 in 3 firms offer statutory paternity leave pay, and then the bulk of the rest, it's 2 weeks at full pay, with the exception being firms offering either 1 week at full pay or 2 weeks at 50% pay. However, to add to this, there's also the option of shared parental leave. And I read recently from a government survey that the uptake of shared parental leave is still actually relatively low in the UK, at approximately just 2%. But I wonder if this is something that may increase going forward. For example, has the experience of work from home and spending more time with the family actually encouraged more to consider sharing the parental leave? And so, as it stands, though, this is an area that has the largest proportion of firms following the statutory guidelines. However, it is good to see that some firms are going beyond this, for example, offering to match the maternity leave offering in the case of any shared parental leave. But naturally, employees will be required to follow certain procedures and meet criteria before starting the shared parental leave period. And examples of this include being with the firm for at least 26 weeks, the other parent must have worked in at least 26 of the 66 weeks before the expected date of birth, and the individuals or the other parent must give the necessary statutory notices and declarations, including a notice to the end of maternity leave, statutory maternity pay, or maternity allowance periods. Now, a couple of times I've mentioned loyalty, both from the firm and the employee. So loyalty is often shown by an employee staying with a firm over a long term. And I therefore wanted to see if and how firms reward their staff as they reach certain milestones. Onto the next slide, please. Well, on the if question, it's very much a case of yes, that firms do reward staff based on length of service, with 83% offering some form of reward. And I'm sure employees will appreciate these, even if their monetary value may be relatively small in comparison to their total package. And firms seem to be also thinking outside of the box when it comes to rewards, and it's not just the typical gold watch offer. And I mentioned before how some have given extra days holiday per year based on length of service, and this can be as high as 5 extra days awarded. And a popular choice is a gift voucher or a cash payment, and these naturally increase the longer the individual's worked. And across the individuals and the firms that we spoke to, it ranged from a £20 reward to as much as £1,000, with the majority being in the low hundreds. And we saw before the importance of pensions, and so this is another way to boost pension contribution by rewarding time at the firm with a higher contribution. And if an employee has been with a firm for many decades, there could be a large benefit from them having a short break to clear their mind. And this is captured by firms offering up to 4 weeks of sabbatical. And then finally, there's the acknowledgement prize, with one firm providing a framed achievement award when employees reach milestones. And so the focus of benefits is not just to help recruit staff, but can also certainly assist in retaining them and keeping morale high, which you'd hope would naturally boost staff productivity. And so, but to finish my presentation, I wanted to take a brief look at what lies ahead, what lies ahead in the future, and how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the benefits scheme. So if we can move on to my final slide, please. Well, over the last couple of weeks, I've been asking our participants if the pandemic has caused them to change or review their benefits and what new benefits they are looking to introduce in the near future. Actually, the most common response was that firms are particularly happy with their benefits packages, and so did not change them as a result of the pandemic, and are not looking to change them over the next 12 months. However, focusing on those that did suggest changes, the key phrase was more flexibility. So this covers flexible benefits platforms and any ongoing flexible working arrangements, with more staff expected to split their time between working from home and going into the office for the ongoing future. And after all, the industry has coped and functioned extremely well in these conditions. Additional health benefits, and in particular a focus on mental health, has also featured on the agenda. For example, some have organised employees to become fully qualified mental health first aiders, whereas others are looking into initiatives surrounding financial well-being, which will assist with mental health. And then we have benefits associated with work from home, such as the arrangement of virtual desktop assessments to check things such as posture when working at their home desk, and something that can obviously be transferred to the office if and when they return. And other new benefits include a holiday trading facility, so again, a flexible benefit. And although I haven't mentioned it on this slide, one firm commented that they are reviewing electric car schemes, so an interesting approach of supporting the well-being of the planet as well as their employees. Well, that's all I've got me today. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found this useful. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with me if you want to know more. But until then, I'll pass you back to Dan, and very much hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, James. Some very interesting slides there. Just to let you know, we'll be catching up with you in the next few days after this. So if those slides are something that you're interested in, we will be able to get those over to you. Now I will hand over to Prash.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. Following on that from that very interesting presentation from James, I will be looking at employee benefits strategy and employee engagement. On to my first slide, please. Firstly, a quick introduction on myself. I have over 10 years senior level search experience within wealth and asset management. Prior to that, I have a background in front office asset management, managing global equities. On the next slide, for those of you who are new to Parkwell, we are a management consultancy running change and transformation projects for clients with particular expertise in the private banking, wealth and asset management sectors. The recruitment arm, led by Dan and myself, have a strong track record hiring key staff across all business functions in these sectors. And on to the next slide, please. Let's have a look at where we are at the moment. So the shift to a more remote workplace has meant the need for firms to re-evaluate how their business operates. The pandemic has accelerated technological enhancements, and this has proved paramount in enabling businesses to remain connected with their people and their clients. How a company treats their employees during ups and downs can dramatically affect their employer brand, and potentially the buying behavior of consumers is affected by their perception of how a company manages their employees. If an employer does not do a good job in communicating during a crisis, this can compromise employee retention and recruitment efforts. So on to the next slide, and let's look at some current challenges. The wealth management industry has been built on strong personal relationships and face-to-face meetings. New forms of communication are now needed to engage with clients and also employees. So how do firms drive engagement with their employees to ensure they feel valued and supported with their mental, physical and financial health? The three core reasons why employee benefits exist. Being competitive is important, but firms must focus on developing their benefit strategy to align with what makes your business different. If a firm has let some employees go, this can lead to lower employee engagement and a reduction in motivation of employees who have kept their jobs. Mitigating the effects of this is a good reason for firms to review benefits. And reviewing benefits is especially important during a time when salary increases are unlikely and employees need to find other ways to show their employees appreciation for their efforts. Another challenge is that the wealth management industry has a significant number of smaller to mid-sized companies. To prevent staff turnover, they need to operate like a big firm. So on to the next slide, please, and let's look at some trends in benefit strategy. Employee benefits need to work hand in hand with a firm's employee value proposition, which is what you portray to candidates when recruiting new talent and what keeps your people from leaving. It is what makes your company different. By understanding that your benefits are part of a larger EVP, HR leaders are designing benefits that directly align with a company's wider business goals, values, and culture to create a benefits package that is as unique as their company. On the next slide, we can see that diversity and inclusion is now a core part of all companies in their people strategy. And in turn, they are thinking about how it applies to their overall employee benefits strategy. Within the wealth and asset management sectors, there are some fantastic initiatives to address equality, and prioritizing these issues in benefits design helps to attract and retain a diverse workforce. Companies who have a well-being program in place recognize the positive impact it has on employees, but this year has forced firms to review their benefits packages to meet the demands and challenges of COVID-19. Flexible and remote working were once seen as a perk, but as a result of the pandemic, many businesses have been forced to adopt it and have in turn realized that remote and flexible work can have a positive effect on employee well-being. On the next slide, one of the most powerful tools to deliver a return on your benefits offering is communication. Without that, you risk a lack of interest in your benefits and them not being engaged with, all of which are essential goals for any successful benefits program. It is about creating a strong brand, thinking of the employees as consumers and personalizing benefits communication. Technology is another area that has and will continue to change dramatically in order to meet the changing needs, and it is critical in the evolution of employee benefits. Making benefits easy to find and integrating them into current workplace technology raises awareness and increases engagement. On to the next slide, and if we consider a benefits platform, advantages of using a platform and management tools are reduced administration and increased cost control for the employer. A single access point with company branding provides a unique employee experience. A bespoke portal is also a communications and marketing tool which can drive employee engagement with real-time reporting and analytics for the employer to analyze and use. And the benefits are there to be seen, as employees with access to a benefits platform have a better understanding of their benefits, they are more satisfied with their benefits, and they have a more positive image of their employer. And on to the next slide, let's look at various ways of driving employee engagement using your benefits offering. Planning a 12-month strategy, this is very important as different benefits may be more appropriate at different times of the year. Providing a flexible offering with a range of benefits that matches the needs of the employees, not only throughout the year, but also at different stages of life, greatly helps in talent retention. Make your benefits more accessible in a centralized hub. Using a mobile-first employee benefits platform can really drive accessibility and engagement and deliver a positive employee experience. Focus on education, not just communication. Employees need to understand their benefits and the opportunities that are available to maximize them. You can also use data to drive your engagement strategy. A dedicated platform provides analytics and information on benefits usage, and that can help build personalized communications. So on to the next slide. By offering an attractive benefits package, employees are much more engaged in their work. High levels of employee engagement also correlate with other factors that characterize a strong employer brand, feeling proud about where you work and recommending your workplace to others. Low employee engagement significantly risks damaging the employer brand. As well as an attractive benefits offering, authentic leadership and effective communication are two factors that help increase employee engagement. Salary is adequate to retain staff, but it is more cost effective if you combine it with an attractive benefits package. On the next slide, we can have a look at some details of a recent YouGov survey carried out a few months ago. The question was, which benefits would you consider changing employer if that offering was better than your current employer's offer? The three most popular benefits in the response were bonus and profit sharing, flexibility, and pension scheme. The survey also highlighted the fact that 9 out of 10 employees under the age of 30 would consider changing employers to receive better benefits. Healthcare benefits came out as less important for this age group, and they rank learning and development options as more important as they focus on enhancing their careers. So providing support towards qualifications and skills learning is very valuable and important for employee engagement, loyalty, and ultimately retention. Within the survey, if you go further and filter by gender, healthcare benefits came out as more important for women than men, with men considering pension more important than healthcare. So on to my final slide, and now more than ever is a challenging time for leadership and HR teams as they adapt to accommodate the changing employment landscape. Against this ever-changing backdrop, the need to evolve employee benefit strategies and delivery of them through technology has become more important. Within wealth management, continuity of individuals is very important to clients. So focus is needed on staff retention so that clients remain with the firm. Relationships between employees and managers have never been more important, and communication and flexibility is at the top of the agenda. This environment has put an increased focus on employee benefits. Employees need to offer benefits that contribute to increased physical, mental, and financial well-being. They need to offer a high degree of flexibility and personalization that focus on individual needs. And now the digital experience via an accessible centralized benefits platform has to be on a par with what employees have become accustomed to in their private lives. So I hope that has given you some insight into benefits and employee engagement. Thank you very much for listening today, and back to Dan.
Thanks very much indeed, Prash. Some very interesting things to take away and think about there. So now we will go across to our panel. So I would like to firstly introduce everyone. So perhaps if we could go across to Sophie for her to tell us a little bit about herself.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Sophie Forrest, MD and owner of Forrest HR. We provide outsourced HR support and also employment law support and services for businesses that don't have this as an internal resource. We also have our sister companies, which was Forrest Training Academy, doing training and coaching, and also very newly launched Forrest Health and Wellbeing.
Excellent, thanks very much. And perhaps I could ask Sian to tell us a little bit as well.
Thank you. I'm Sian Anthony. I'm head of reward at Rathbones, which is a wealth and investment management company with, I think we're over 1,600 people now, and across the UK and Jersey.
And then over to Angela, please.
Oh.
Killick & Co. I'm in HR and I'm the compensation and benefits manager. I've worked at Killick now for over 20 years.
Excellent. Thanks very much to everyone for joining us. So I'll start with the questions. Prash illustrated how you can use your benefits program to drive employee engagement. Is that any member of the panel has seen any success in? And perhaps I'll start with Sophie on that one.
Yeah, so quite a lot of success. I think it's, you know, during lockdown and so on. I think some businesses have acted, you know, different and responded differently to others. Some it's come very naturally for them. But there's been I've seen some of my clients have some excellent employee engagement tools that they've used to keep staff engaged. You know, from working from home, it's such a different shift to many workers. So yeah, they've incorporated some fun things, ensuring their communication tools are really effective. Yeah, they've really done well with it.
Thanks very much. And Sian, I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, the pandemic has been a bit of a game changer for a lot of people. And I think for Rathbones, it's been, we've had a huge impact in engagement through the wellbeing support and initiatives that we've had throughout this year, well, since March, in a lot more focus. I think where we've had family-friendly support, we've had feedback that that family-friendly work that we've been doing does make a real difference. So I think also where there has been some engagement as well is where we've done some work to equalise benefits. For example, where we had private medical, different eligibility criteria, length of service, by doing away with some of that and making it accessible for everyone. I think that's had a really positive impact on engagement. And I think also having the benefits program that we have is a good way to be able to connect and engage on things that do have an impact for everyone in the organisation.
Thanks, Sian. And I wonder, Angela, if we could have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, employee engagement, it's always been something which we have to sort of try and measure as best that we can. And benefits are a big part of employee engagement. And as sort of Sian has said, the mental and well-being has had a massive impact, initiatives that we've introduced. But it's also about good communication across benefits, whether we're pandemic or not, asking and listening for feedback, making sure staff are aware of all the benefits that they have in their package. Do they actually understand them? And I think to increase employee engagement going forward, we probably will turn more to having more flexible benefits, which will engage staff more because they'll have to choose what benefits they value the most. Having a standard sort of all-in-one package, I think will decrease. And to help employee engagement, we'll have to go more towards the flexible benefits to increase employee engagements for the benefits package.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. So I'll move on to the next question. Can the panel see their diversity and inclusion policies changing with more flexible working practices? And perhaps we could start with Sian on this one.
Sure, thank you. I think with the flexibility, I think we need to be mindful of what is more challenging in this new way of working. So what we've been looking at and linking to sort of our diversity and inclusion is our performance assessment and promotions processes to make sure that there's been a real focus on performance conversations that could quite easily go by the wayside with everyone working remotely. So I know that there's probably some organisations that have toned down their performance appraisal process for this year in light of the pandemic. We've actually ramped ours up a bit. I think it's important to have that kind of opportunity for everyone to have those important conversations. I think for us, flexible working has changed the perception of from some of the senior people who might have been flexible working naysayers. I think it's changed the view for a lot of those. So I think that's given us an opportunity now, what we're actually working on, to revisit what can and can't work well from home, and having a formal review of an agile working policy, which again will link into where we can hire people from, people's circumstances. We may not be restricted by location so much. We can tap into a bigger talent pool, which may help in some of our diversity and inclusion targets.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Perhaps I could ask Sophie now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just really important for individuals to also really understand how to use some of these practices and the policies and stuff as well. It's, there definitely has to be changes to practices going forwards, because of the nature of how individuals are working now. It's not the same environment that it was, and it will continue to change into next year as well. So I think training is really important on a lot of some of these areas as well, and just being more flexible and able to make changes to how you would normally be dealing with stuff.
Okay, thanks Sophie, and lastly over to Angela.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely learnt to be more flexible with sort of people's working hours during this pandemic. But I think before you start sort of looking at your policies and changing them, it's more crucial to sort of think about inclusion and solutions to being.
Oh, we seem to have lost Angela there. So perhaps we'll move on to the next question now, and see if we can get her back.
So you need buy-in from the top, and you need your. Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Sorry.
Oh. So yeah, private rooms for women if they need it, sort of return to work mothers or women go through the menopause. Gender neutral bathrooms, more commonplace now. And
okay, we seem to be having a few problems with Angela's connection. One of the perils of doing these this way. Let's move on
to get feedback
to the next question. And let me start with Sian on this one. Can benefits be used to differentiate one firm from another and therefore support them in order to hire and retain the best people? I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I think some of that was reflected in one of the slides earlier. I think the extent depends on where you hire, or where someone is in their career, and also where you're hiring someone from. So if you're new in your career, like the development opportunities are important as you move through into your 30s. You're into mortgage territory and families, so that's where you're probably more money driven. So I think where benefits for us, it comes in as a selling point. I mean, we're at the top end of the charts from James. We're very generous in our benefits, so I think it's a good selling point if people are moving from some of your very high salaried organizations. We can present it as a top-notch benefits package, and it can help in actually getting someone over the line. I think also as well, it's within financial services, there's an expectation that your benefits will be good. So I think it could be that you're coming from another financial services organisation with 15% non-contributory pension, to which a 10% pension seems a bit rubbish. But if you're coming from a retail organisation, 10% would be amazing. So I think I think there's different extents to which it sells depending on where you're coming from. But I think it is can be particularly important in getting some people over the line, more so than money.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sian. Shall we try Angela one more time and see if we've got a better connection?
Yeah, very similar to Sian, really. It all depends. Obviously, the role, salary, the culture is important. If all those elements are the same, then yes, benefits are going to be to help you attract new talent. I don't see benefits as such a big deal for retaining staff. People don't stay for the benefits alone. It's more the sort of the total package, and it's on where your life stages are at the time. Benefits will be of more valuable at some points than others, so that will depend on what your benefits package is compared to a competitor's benefits package, and what you see as more value to meet your needs at that particular time in your career.
Brilliant. Thanks, Angela. And Sophie, I wonder if you've got a sort of maybe a slightly different point of view from a sort of consultancy side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as James has made quite clear in his slides, that, there are differences in what companies are offering as part of their packages. But and yes, I think it can be used as a tool, I guess, in comparison and hiring the best people and being the most competitive in the market. But I think as what we've sort of seen, and I don't want to obviously sort of step ahead too much into the next question, but I think what's really important, it isn't just the really good pension, the really generous, private medical insurance. It is so much more, as Prash's highlighted as well. It's the flexibility that an employer can offer. you know, one of the things which, you know, which is really why I've launched Forest Health and Wellbeing, is because health and wellbeing packages and strategies and stuff in a business is so important. And I think that really, in my opinion, puts employers right up there in terms of, you know, taking the health and wellbeing of their staff really seriously, you know, because there have been some impacts to individuals' health and wellbeing during this pandemic.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And it's interesting you brought up the healthcare, because that is the next thing we were going to sort of think about. Have you seen changes in what sort of packages have offered, skewed in any particular way? And perhaps, so if you might want to carry on with your thoughts about the healthcare there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, employers are just looking to just do a bit more. They want to do more. You know, it's not a new initiative. You know, for some of the larger firms, you know, Sean's firm's probably already, you know, doing some of this stuff. You know, having health and wellbeing experts helping in this area. You know, we work very closely with one of the largest charities, you know, in this field, Mind, and you know, mental health awareness, stress management, all of these things is so very important. And for a lot of firms, it's a new ground. They don't really know how to deal with it, and they're really reliant on firms being able to, you know, there's quite a lot of pressure on HR as well, you know, internally HR for them to come up with these, you know, brilliant initiatives that maybe, you know, they've got to sort of not make up, but, you know, to sort of, you know, draw together themselves. So, you know, that's another reason why we've launched the programs that we have to help those internal HR teams as well.
Thanks very much. And perhaps I could ask Sean, other than healthcare, or if healthcare is indeed it, do you see there being any other big trends coming up in employee benefits within wealth management?
Yeah, I think that the choice one, I think, is a big one. It's one that I kind of run away from because we're limited in resources, and flex schemes are hugely, well, can be quite administrative. I think also integrating your various offerings and support. So something that we've been through the pandemic is that we've sort of been tapping into various data points from our EAP program, from mental health apps that we have, and then sort of thinking about targeted support. So social anxiety was something that was highlighted through our mental health first aiders. So you're just channeling what you do based on what information you have on what the pressure points are. I think obviously well-being is huge. I think that what this has given us an opportunity to do is have that recognition from the top of the organisation about the importance of well-being initiatives. And at Rathbones, you know, there's been a huge recognition of that, and a real push for us to, you know, keep on doing what we need to do, and basically an open book when it comes to sort of well-being initiatives, which has been great.
Thanks, Sean. Very interested to hear your thoughts on that, Angela.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the mental and physical well-being has been huge for us over this pandemic. We were quite fortunate. We had a lot of support avenues already in place. We had trained mental health first aiders. They've been utilised more throughout this pandemic than what sort of they were before. And having the ability to work from home, obviously that does cause issues for some people if they haven't got the right setup at home. So having line managers sort of being trained as well to help support their staff, notice if their staff are struggling. So communication is really key for when you've got people working different locations. So it's just keeping those lines of communication open between HR, line managers, and all your employees to support them, and let them know what support they have available and what benefits they have in place already to help them.
Thanks, Angela. So perhaps moving on to something slightly different, but with a lot of us sort of still working from home and likely to do so for certainly a few months yet, do you think benefits packages might change going forward for people who perhaps continue to stay at work from home, or people who are coming back into the office? Will there be something differentiating between the two, and might it be an incentive to get people back into the office or stay at home, or how do you think things might pan out? Perhaps I'll start with Sian here.
Sure. Yeah, I think for us, I think that's not something that we're looking at in terms of differentiating between those that are at home or at work. And in terms of incentivizing people to return, we're looking at, as part of the agile working policy, it'll be non-monetary, non-benefits will be focusing on the importance of working with colleagues, the learning from colleagues, the importance of Rathbones culture, which is a huge selling point for the company, both in retention and attraction. So that culture comes from people working together. So I think it won't necessarily be, you can have this if you come in, or you have this if you stay at home. It will be, actually, these are the reasons why it's important for us to be working together when we get to that point.
Thanks very much. Angela, did you have some thoughts on that?
Very similar to Sian. We're not going to be changing benefits to encourage people to come into the office. It is, when we want people to come back in, it is going to be more pretty much of working together. Onboarding staff has been more difficult, everyone being at home. So when we've got new staff, we want those teams to go in to help integrate a new member of their teams. It is all about the culture, and also supervision under SMCR. We have to have the proper supervision in place, which is harder to work for, at home, much easier in the office. So yeah, it is. We will be working, more agile as we go ahead, but we won't be changing any benefits to encourage people back into the office.
Okay, thanks very much. And perhaps lastly, we could go to Sophie to see what your thoughts on that are.
But yeah, similar in the fact that I agree. I don't think necessarily packages need to be different for those working from home or those in the office. I think just maybe some of the way that you're accommodating some of the benefits, so in terms of them communicating, your flexibility. I mean, communication is remained key throughout this whole situation, and yeah, there just maybe just needed some changes in that respect. I think training, for certain areas, depending on the benefits and the communication of that. We've moved a lot of our stuff online through these exact sort of routes, through Zoom or other sort of video calls, and the same with the delivery of the health and wellbeing stuff as well. It can, it's a mixture of whether that's online or in person. I think it's just being able to accommodate both, not oh God, what we're going to do because people are at home. I don't think that's an appropriate response. Everybody just has to move with it and just carry on delivering as they were. Okay, well, thanks very much indeed. I think we'll call it a day there. We're approaching the end of our time. Sort of my takeaway is wow, there's going to be some very interesting times coming ahead. People working at home, people coming back to the office. It's going to be an interesting year, but hopefully a much more positive one in many ways than the year we've almost just finished. I'd really like to thank Angela, Sophie and Sian for joining us on this panel. It's been very interesting. And also Prash and James for their thoughts, slides and discussions. Thanks very much indeed. I hope everyone has a good end to the year, a good Christmas, etc. And we will be back sometime in the new year with another topic to discuss. Thanks very much indeed, and goodbye.